you see that? Your face is all like, oh. Do not obey. Woo. Stay woke. Peace.
A little refresher, this album originally belonged to my ancestors, who were hunters of supernatural creatures and members of a secret order for many years. It was given to me by a vampire that they entrusted to watch over it for a time. This album comes from the Sons of Man, in that the photos within were taken inside their dungeon.
Okay, so welcome to another video. I want to go ahead and, reel you guys in. You guys need to go to this young man's channel. I will leave the link in the description below. I have been doing 2 days of binge watching him. Let's just start off by saying I 100% believe him. He is a long distant relative of monster hunters. Okay? He has found files dating back to the 1300s. He has proof of them working with clergy. There's proof of witches, vampires, monsters. Oh my. Okay? This man found a chest that has been passed down and passed down through generations to the men. It has swords, old relics, information on stuff that people are going to laugh at that I'm talking about right now. All the things that we've seen in movies, they have gotten it from these people. Nothing is real in a sense of movies. They didn't come up with these ideas just because they're creative and they want to make a movie. These people in Hollywood, allegedly, these elites, and some of them probably used to work with the order, the Sons of Men, okay? And they probably branched off and started leaking the information for their own greed. And I'm not even going to get on the Vatican. Okay. Oh, and Notre Dame is also connected into it as well. That sarcophagus that was found, I'll throw in some clips at the end of this video. I am not trying to take any of his content, but I needed to get this out. And we're going to watch this short video. He's going to show you every monster, well, most of them in this video, that are real. To this day, they still exist. To this day, and there are people fighting. To this day.
St. George's Keep, where they kept the creatures capable of being held captive. I've already shown several. Here are pictures of my ancestors, Theobald Oldry, my 5th great-grandfather, and his son, Reinhold Oldry. Both were paladin knights serving within the Sons of Man, and Reinhold was actually responsible for capturing several of the creatures that I'm about to show you.
And this book does talk about mermaids. It talks about werewolves, but they don't call them werewolves. I mean, they have files, y'all. Like, it even connects you to the SCP Foundation. Like, a lot of people are still in it to win it. And if any of them can see this video and hear my voice, come get me. I'd rather DOA doing that than DOA doing the same matrix routine, not even following behind people, but just stuck in this stupid ass shit over here when I already know there's a whole lot going on. It's like the cabin where they had all the monsters at the bottom. Well, guess what? All these monsters are kept somewhere as well.
Now,
Oh, and then we'll talk about Blackula little island or whatever that damn island's called. Just saying. Just saying. And what I've noticed that most of these vampires and most of these monsters were from in Europe. And it makes you think about Columbus and really what he was and his people. Just saying.
We're starting with fresh ones that I have not yet shown. Starting here with what we would call a ghoul. A creature that lives in graveyards, cemeteries, any places with lots of corpses that they feed off of and take the appearance of.
And this is real. Period.
This is a changeling, which I have spoken of numerous times already in past videos, but my great-grandfather Leopold Oldry feared was our gravest concern moving forward. These things that approximate human form, but do a poor job of it. They seem to incite that fear we call the uncanny valley, and are possibly the evolutionary purpose behind such an unnerving dread existing. I imagine seeing something like this in person would be truly horrifying. I wonder how related these two creatures truly are. I wouldn't want to come across either one of them. Now we're going to move into some other strange creatures that I have not shown yet. Starting with what would be the closest thing I imagine to a real-world Frankenstein's monster. Cobbled together from strange occult magics and crude late 19th century technology, you can see that it's attached to some kind of machinery through wires and cords. There's mechanical apparatus on its body, but it does look like a long dead corpse, somehow reanimated. Like the others, it has a very haunting gaze. I imagine this is what Harold referred to when he spoke of man-made monstrosities. And a very different creature, the harpy, possibly a purely physical, non-magical entity. It did hunt humans, particularly children and smaller adults. So regardless of whether it's some kind of demonic force of nature, it was a creature that the sons of man felt was their responsibility to handle, and they needed to know more about it like the rest. Seeing these things even in photographs is difficult to believe. Again, like I said, I can't imagine what it must take to face them in person. Now, some of these I have already done videos about, so I won't linger quite as long. The mermaid, Merrow, most similar to the Irish Merrow of mythology. These creatures were held in a flooded, lower cavernous section of the keep, flooded with not very pleasant water, I'm sure, to live in. But these creatures did survive there for at least a time. You can kind of see she looks like she's in the water up to near her chest. I imagine it was not ideal. Here is what is referred to sometimes as a deep one. You might think of it like the creature from the Black Lagoon or some kind of oceanic version of that. It lives in salt water, horrific creatures that, these are the most likely to still exist today, given the size of the world's oceans. Harold wrote that they were servants of Dagon, the Sumerian god of the sea. Now these next ones I've shown but not explained at length. This is some kind of crustacean-like creature, much larger than any that we know in the natural world. It seems to have semi-humanoid features like shoulders and the way that the clawed arms are segmented. But again, this might just be a purely physical, almost natural creature that was a little bit too comfortable hunting humans, and to people in the 1800s, it would have been no different. Now, on the contrary, this is what they considered the worst of the ocean creatures that they held in the keep. They considered it on par with demons, powerful warlocks. They said it was most similar to cephalopod creatures like squid and octopus, but as you can see there, it has a very human-like face. I don't know if that's some kind of shape it could take. I know that some cephalopods can do things like that. but they considered this thing incredibly dangerous and
Okay, this clip that I found kind of shows, I think it's gonna show like the box, like like the long chest of all these old artifacts, fighting artifacts, stuff that you would see in the movies that they copy from these people. And I'm gonna say it again, allegedly. Now, he's gonna be talking about some files. I just want to show you guys. I believe him, and I don't care what nobody says. Sometimes the proof is right there in your face, and you still don't want to believe it. Even though you have eyes you do not see, and even though you have ears you do not hear. This shit is real.
Okay, tonight we are going to go into another one of the files from my great-grandfather Leopold that I found under the house during my live. Another interesting one, been doing a lot of research about these. That's why they've been a little bit slow coming out, but let's just go into it. Okay, it says multiple dog man sightings in...
And here goes where people get werewolves or weremen. But do you guys know that this file shows that some of these beasts were not as evil or as strong as they were until they were manipulated by humans?
Panhandle.
Or what we can call humans, hell, I don't know, scientists in human form, changelings, invasion of the body snatchers.
This one puzzles me. Does not all capped, seem to be lycanthropes, Voltkin, or anything else I know. Maybe some kind of modern Ulfenheiner, some weird word, I'll show you what that means. Very aggressive, intelligent, possibly human level, unorganized, at least for now. And then he has several updates talking about basically how he hasn't found anything. For a little bit he thinks maybe it's mass hallucination, but he's changes his mind on that. He goes on to say, deeper dive has me thinking might be related to Harold's writings about Vienna. Now, if you remember in here, from Harold's journal, and Harold was Leopold's grandfather, he talked about how lycanthropes were creatures that sound like, like a classic wolf man, just a man covered in hair with claws and teeth. And something that some group did in Vienna seemed to create this much more monstrous version that sounds like a dog man. He goes on to talk about more suppression, and like the suppression of the stories is what makes him really believe.
The suppression of the stories. People are not told to talk about it. People are hushed up. Then after a while, years and years, hundreds of eons and whatever time is passes. And now we just watch movies and laugh because they don't exist. Come on.
Something's going on. He also mentions reaching out to Edgar again. Now, this seems to have been a contact, someone he knew in the Psalms. He thought they were the ones suppressing it. And he says that he did reach out to this Edgar person, and they told him either to join up or stay back.
And Psalms is the Son of Men organization that was started with his great-great-grandfather, I believe. I don't know how many greats. And another person his grandfather knew. This man wasn't even alive then. All this shit was passed down through the family.
And that's the last thing he says about it here. Okay, so first, what is a dog man? My research showed me that it's some kind of cryptid, kind of related with some of the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomena. They never mention Leopold, Harold, none of them ever mention anything about anything like Bigfoot. This is the closest thing, and here's a picture I found of a supposed dog man on the internet. And here is an apparent artist's rendition, like a police sketch of what people claim to see. As you can see, it's basically just a horrifying werewolf. Now, I couldn't find anything about reports of this in Florida or in the Panhandle, which, if you don't know, is a part of Florida. I did find about the Michigan dog man, goes back to 1887, and, I do know that there are more stories about this, not just in Michigan, but it is the most famous one. And finally, this Ulfenar thing that he mentions kind of has a really cool and random connection to me. I'll talk to you guys about it. You see here, these are the wolf berserkers. Basically, they were like, how berserkers were bears, these guys were wolves, essentially. And, that's what I...
Okay, I believe I have found it. Like, he has it all spread out. He does do some recaps, like I say. Please go binge, watch it. Start at the beginning so you can work your way up to the end. He gives all details. He gives, what do you call it? Evidence, okay? Though for those, that want to see. He's not just sitting up here rambling. He's showing you proof. So I believe this is one of the chests or the big chest. And I'm just going to let this play some, okay?
An incredible legacy. all buried deep within the house that I inherited from my estranged grandmother. The most incredible of it all, the writings, journals, and books detailing a 5-generation legacy of men who hunted supernatural creatures, and the history of the order that started them. The majority of the writings are journals from my great-great-great-grandfather, Harold Oldry, the member of the family that eventually broke away from the church. But the family's full legacy with the Sons of Man Order is fully detailed, starting with his grandfather Theobald and continuing with his father Reinhold and himself. They served as paladins from the order that dated to Charlemagne, a super soldier force of some kind that would hunt down the creatures too much for regular mortal men. Now, this order, the Sons of Man, within the church, dates back to the First Crusade, paladins, but they joined in that time with hunters of various supernatural creatures from all across Europe, officially uniting with the church's military forces, as well as the various exorcists that they had in their employ. Theobald Oldry joined that brotherhood in the late 1700s, his son a few decades later, slaying titanic beasts and even capturing some to hold within St. George's Keep. Many of their various incredible deeds are chronicled by Reinhold's son Harold, who was a paladin himself for a time, but as I said, eventually left the church. Other than writing down various accounts, he kept many of their sacred artifacts that they wielded in battle, and he continued to use them even after losing the power. As you can see, many of them remain in our care to this day. From here on out, I'll be relaying information to you found within these documents more than just transcribing my discovery of them. I do find Harold to be the most interesting of them.
To find out what those things were, please stay tuned.
The story so far, 3 of 4.
I pulled out the trunk and opened it on Halloween night. As difficult as it may be to believe, what I found inside were the tools of an old-world monster slayer. A Viking-style sword, rusted with what looked like may have been blood. Whatever the case, it had been heavily used. This strange knife with an antler handle, perhaps used for some kind of ritual. And even a full vampire killer's case, including a mallet and stake, several crosses, including 2 intricate, 1 simple carven stone, a small crossbow, and a bottle of what I assumed to be holy water. I had seen things like this before in movies and on television, but I never imagined I'd have one myself in front
Exactly. This shit is real.
of me. Not quite as strange, but equally as interesting, was this mid-19th century revolver, complete with a full set of silver bullets, and a large dagger that I assume is of silver of some kind as well. Another old box, this one with a picture of a priest and all the tools necessary to perform exorcism. And the infamous witch hunter's book, the Malleus Maleficarum, also called the Witch Hammer. Perhaps strangest of all was this case with a bell, rocks with holes, rusted metal, a bottle of herbs. My followers believe this is for combating the Fae, which would make sense given the other
Fays, I believe, are fairies.
things that are in the trunk.
Not all of them are bad, but most of them, I think, are.
Then there's this large, old, mysterious clock, the bell on the back of which seems to ever ring as long as it's outside of this container. Continuing in the back of my mind, this strange skull that I assume is of a wolf, though I'm no expert and others have said it might be a bear. These bottles of I don't know what, except for that one had teeth rather than liquids. They were of varying colors. A strange set of candle holders or incense burners with crosses in them that I assume are religious in some way. And then the box marked with an X, the one referenced in my great-grandfather's journals, supposedly containing dark materials, cursed items, dangerous things that are not to be messed with. He had it reinforced in Casadega. And perhaps most important of all was the treasure trove of documents, including papers, mission documents, and Leo's grandfather's personal journals. It opened me up to a world beyond anything I had ever imagined, opening the door to an ancient Catholic order of supposed monster hunters and exorcists that the world isn't supposed to know exists. Stay tuned to find out more.
The story so far, 4 of 4.
Finding such a treasure trove of unbelievable family relics, as I've said, has completely changed the direction of my life. Aside from the amazing weapons and strange relics, the papers, journals, other documents have proven to be perhaps the most invaluable. They tell the story of Leo's grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather, Harold Oldry. These documents trace out the story of his life, from the absolutely tragic to the utterly unbelievable, often a combination of both. Having served his whole life in a Catholic order of monster hunters, dealing with things like mermaids and sea creatures, as well as vampires, werewolves, dark witches, fey creatures, demons, any kind of thing you can imagine, this was their secret weapon, a blade they called the Hamsa blade, apparently capable of killing almost anything when they didn't know its weakness. He was the third generation in that Catholic order, after his father Reinhold and his grandfather Theobald, who joined in the late 1700s. The Sons of Man was the name of the order. I know this because of documents in this book that was in the trunk. They were formed in 1108 by a pair of crusader friends who had gone on, one to become a member of a dynasty of wholly empowered knights, the other joining up with a guild of Scandinavian monster hunters. Together they formed this brotherhood that went on to hunt the night. I've been contacted by who I imagine are a modern-day incarnation of these people, hoping to buy the artifacts from me, but as of yet I have not relented. They mentioned other items in the house, like this strange clock.
This is a time travel clock. You have to do some more research on his channel to see and to get the documents, but it time travels. You can move with it. Yeah. Had it back then, huh?
Inside of which I found odd items like a small crystal ball in weird.
I think that ball right there is what generates the power to be able to go through realms or portals or back and forth. Crystals. And I ain't even gonna get into what I believe that the crystals are, because a lot of crystals come from melanated people.
Claws, and this little mechanism thing that holds gems and I believe is some kind of key or battery of some kind of mystical nature. It has more than once messed with the videos I've tried to take of it. Stranger still, this scrap of paper with the date February 22nd, 2022. I had the medium come back out, read Frogette, the other items, try to get a better feel of the house. She was able to give me a lot more information, due to the fact that I kept her on the patio with the items further away. There are still more mysteries to uncover, like this old cauldron that may have belonged to an ancient druid witch, and this eerie picture of the Madonna that has a strange power and almost appears to have wept. The eyes of it speak to me on some level. I'm writing all of this down into a series of books, starting with the story of Harold and the druid witch he broke from church imprisonment, Brigid. According to the journals, they worked together to stop some kind of apocalypse.